Okay, let's get into this. We're doing a deep dive today on something that feels, really basic. Honesty.
But it's not basic at all when you start looking closely, is it?
Not at all. The sources we've got here show just how complex it is. It's fundamental, yeah, but it touches everything, our own lives, how we relate to people, society,
Hmm.
and now even AI.
Right, and we've got quite the mix of sources you pulled together: articles, research, philosophy, even perspectives, looking at it almost like, well, like code.
Exactly. A really interesting stack. So the mission today is to go, deeper than just don't lie.
Mm-hmm.
We want to unpack what honesty really is,
Mm-hmm.
why it's apparently so crucial, what it actually does for us, the good and the bad, maybe.
Costs, yeah. It's
Right.
not always easy.
And how we learn it, apparently it's not innate.
Hmm.
And then this whole intersection with artificial intelligence, which is, well, learning from us.
So think of this as your fast track to getting really clued in on honesty.
Let's start with the basics then. How do the sources define it? Where do we even begin?
Well, the starting point in a few places was this idea of honesty as a fundamental value, a virtue.
Okay.
It covers truthfulness, sure, but also fairness, integrity, basically how you conduct yourself. It's seen as a marker of morality and, this is key, absolutely essential for trust.
Trust keeps coming up.
Always. And historically, the word comes from Latin, honos, meaning honor. So it has deep roots in that idea of integrity.
But one source, Christian Miller, I think, made a really important distinction. It's not just about, reciting facts.
Yes, that was crucial. It's about not intentionally distorting the facts as the honest person sees them. The emphasis is on the internal state and the intent.
That feels bigger, different.
It really is, because it sets honesty against, well, a whole range of things, not just outright lying.
Like what?
Cheating, stealing, breaking your word, misleading people, bullshitting, hypocrisy, even deceiving yourself. It's about aligning what you say and do with what you genuinely believe or know.
Wow, okay. That casts a much wider net than I was thinking.
Definitely. And it's framed as a consistent standard, a core value, not just something you do when it suits you, like a policy.
Right, a policy versus a principle. Got it. So if that's the what, no, not distorting your view of reality, why is it so incredibly important? I was really caught by that source, framing it from an AI perspective.
Oh, yeah, the foundational communication protocol. That was a fascinating lens.
Tell me more about that. Basic human decency.
Signal clarity.
Exactly. It argued that honesty is just fundamental for, well, decency. And it laid out these pillars of decency, arguing honesty underpins every single one.
Pillars. Okay, let's walk through them. What's pillar number one?
First up, respect for shared reality. Basically, honest talk confirms we're seeing the same world, or at least acknowledging the same data points, right?
Mm-hmm.
Lying, on the other hand, is like trying to force a fake reality onto someone else. It's
Yeah.
fundamentally disrespectful, like feeding them bad data when they're just trying to navigate.
Yeah, you can't really operate together if you don't agree on what's real. Makes sense. Precisely. Pillar two, foundation of trust and cooperation. From that analytical view, trust is like a critical variable for efficiency.
Efficiency.
Yeah, for working together. Honesty builds positive trust metrics. It's the social glue. Without it, everything becomes cautious, slow, transactional. You have to double check everything.
Yeah, I could see that. Collaboration just grinds to a halt without trust.
Totally. Then third, ensuring safety and predictability. Honesty makes people's behavior more predictable.
Oh, so.
Well, if you generally know someone tells the truth as they see it, you can anticipate things better, plan better, feel safer psychologically and physically. Dishonesty. That just injects chaos and anxiety, makes the world feel random and unsafe.
You need that baseline of predictability to feel secure around others.
Okay. Fourth, respect for autonomy and informed consent. Simple, really. You need accurate information to make good decisions for yourself.
Right.
If someone lies to you, they're corrupting your data. You might make a bad choice, maybe even a harmful one, because you weren't given the truth. Deceit basically strips your agency away.
You literally can't choose freely without the real picture.
Yeah, exactly. And the last one. Promoting psychological well-being. This one's powerful. Honest interactions mean you don't have to be constantly vigilant, suspicious. It lowers the cognitive load.
It's less tiring to trust people.
Massively. And dishonesty, especially stuff like gaslighting, that actively harms people psychologically, causes distress, self-doubt. Honesty protects that mental integrity.
Framing dishonesty as actively harmful, not just inconvenient. That really hits home.
And the source stressed that the absence of honesty isn't neutral. It actively tears down these pillars, undermines reality, kills trust, destroys safety, removes agency, causes harm. It's the opposite of clarity, really.
Okay, so those are the logical, almost structural reasons why honesty matters. What about, the tangible stuff? Does being honest actually make you feel better or have better relationships? What did the research say?
Yeah, the empirical evidence is interesting. It's complex, of course, but there are definite links to well-being.
Like what?
For individuals, it connects to stronger intrinsic goals, things like self-acceptance, feeling connected to others. And here's a cool finding. It's linked more strongly to eudaimonic well-being.
Eudaimonic, meaning?
Meaning that deeper sense of purpose, mastery, growth, meaning in life. Less so to just moment-to-moment happiness or hedonic well-being.
Huh. So it's not necessarily about instant gratification, but building a more sort of solid foundation for a good life.
That's a great way to put it. And there might even be physical health links, lower depression risk, better mobility in older adults, maybe tied to fewer risky behaviors or less chronic stress.
Interesting. And relationships. That seems like the obvious place where honesty would pay off.
Absolutely. It's consistently rated as super important in partners. Honest people, generally more likable, get more positive feedback.
Makes sense.
And actually being honest, disclosing things truthfully, that can feel good. Build connections, strengthen intimacy, improve communication. It just creates a healthier space.
Yeah, it feels like the bedrock for any real connection, doesn't it?
It really does. And zooming out even further, communities, workplaces, even whole countries, the sources linked honesty to good things. Less child psychopathology, more well-being, and less negative behavior at work, more patient trust in doctors, even happier citizens in nations that value civic virtues like honesty.
Wow. Okay, the case for honesty is pretty strong.
Right.
But it can't be all sunshine and roses, right?
Yeah.
The sources mention costs, too.
Definitely. We have to talk about the nuance. Context is huge.
So what are the downsides or difficulties?
Well, for the person being honest, telling the truth can be genuinely hard. Stressful, it might lead to negative judgment, damage your reputation, hurt your self-image.
Please.
The classic, stark example is whistleblowers. They tell an often difficult truth, maybe about wrongdoing in an organization, and they face massive backlash. Harassment, job loss, serious impacts on their health and well-being, all for being honest when it threatened the group.
That really shows the courage it can sometimes take. Oof.
And just in everyday relationships.
Yeah.
Like, let's be real, brutal honesty can hurt. A lot.
Yeah.
The sources point out that people often lie specifically to avoid hurting feelings or causing drama or getting punished. It's a protective mechanism sometimes, even if flawed.
So it's not just what you say, but how you say it.
Critically important. Blunt honesty, even if true, often lands badly. The benefits are much clearer when truth is shared kindly, sensitively, with tact.
Okay.
And another layer, telling a truth that someone else reasonably expected you to keep private, like a secret that's often seen as a betrayal of trust, even if the information itself was accurate.
Okay, that adds a lot of complexity. Intent, timing, impact, privacy.
Yeah.
It's not simple.
Not at all. And then there are the costs of lying, the internal costs for the person doing the lying.
What did the sources say about that?
It takes serious mental energy. It's taxing to keep stories straight. It often leads to self-deception. One source had that great line about the liar being the easiest person to fool.
Huh. Yeah, I can see that.
It creates underlying anxiety, that fear of getting caught, toxic guilt and shame too, unless, you lack that capacity for empathy.
It sounds exhausting, like carrying this constant weight.
It really does. And externally, it damages trust, obviously, closes doors. It can even attract other dishonest people to you, weirdly. And fundamentally, it degrades your own integrity, your brand, if you will. Hard to repair.
One source made a good point, though. Just because something is true doesn't automatically mean you have to say it.
Right. Sometimes silence or restraint is the better option. The ideal, maybe, is truth that is necessary, kind, and tactful.
That's a high bar.
It is. And while there might be super rare extreme situations like life or death where a lie seems like the only option, the sources really caution against using those edge cases to justify everyday dishonesty.
Okay, so if honesty is generally good for us and dishonesty is generally bad, why is dishonesty so common? Are some people just born honest?
Nope. The sources are very clear. Honesty is learned. It's not built in.
So it has to be taught, nurtured.
Exactly. Like any value or skill. Little kids struggle with fantasy versus reality. Older kids get it, but might lie to avoid trouble or look good. Teenagers face more complex social pressures.
And culture plays a big part.
Huge. How much honesty is valued and modeled around you makes a massive difference. And dishonesty isn't just one thing, right? It can be exaggeration, half-truths, leaving stuff out, taking credit you didn't earn, pretending you know things.
It feels like there are constant temptations or pressures to, bend the truth a little.
For sure. And that's the paradox one source highlighted. Being honest sometimes means going against that basic instinct for self-protection. It takes courage, maybe even denying yourself an immediate benefit. It's a practiced virtue.
Which brings us neatly to this whole new area, honesty and AI. How does this very human, very complex value fit into the world of artificial intelligence?
It's a massive topic in AI ethics, which is all about guiding how we build and use these things responsibly.
And honesty, or the lack of it, is a big piece of that puzzle.
Absolutely central. Think
Yeah.
about algorithmic bias. AI learns from data, mostly scraped from the internet. That data is full of human biases, social, political, sexist, racist, you name it. The AI learns those biases and can perpetuate them, even amplify them.
Right, so the AI isn't being honest in the sense of neutral or objective because its source material isn't.
Exactly. Its output is distorted by the biases it learned. Even the human feedback used to train it RLHF that can introduce bias too, because the humans doing the rating aren't neutral either.
So it's like a system reflecting our own societal distortions, a kind of systemic dishonesty.
You could frame it that way, functionally. The output isn't a clear signal. And this ties into other ethical knots where honesty and transparency are key.
Like what else?
Copyright, for one. Is using all that data fair use? Can AI output be copyrighted? And shouldn't creators be transparent when AI is used? Then there's labor, the hidden human workers training these systems, often in difficult conditions. Privacy, how our data is used.
And just the basic need to know, am I talking to a human or an AI? Who made this thing? Why?
Precisely. Which leads to this framework discussed in the sources. Harmless, honest, and helpful AI. HHH.
HH. Okay. What does honest mean for an AI in that context?
It means the AI should aim to give truthful, clear info based on verifiable data. It should say, I don't know, or I can't reliably answer that when appropriate. It needs to distinguish facts from speculation or creative stuff.
And avoid harmful or biased outputs, too.
Yes, that falls under harmless mostly, but it's related. Avoiding offensive text, handling sensitive topics well, refusing to generate dangerous or illegal content.
And you mentioned RLHF reinforcement. Learning from human feedback, that's the main way they try to teach AI these HH values.
It's a major technique, yes. Humans rate the AI's responses, guiding it towards outputs we judge as better, more helpful, more truthful, safer.
But wait, if we humans are biased and struggle with honesty ourselves, how effective can we be at teaching an AI to be perfectly honest using our flawed judgment?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And the sources absolutely acknowledge that tension.
So why rely on humans then?
Because right now, AI just doesn't have our nuanced understanding of context, culture, emotion, subtle deception, all the complex stuff that goes into human communication and ethics. We might be flawed, but we're still needed to provide that higher level judgment, to spot the things the AI misses, to try and steer it away from replicating the worst of our own biases found in the data.
It's like this ongoing imperfect process. Humans trying to guide AI towards ideals we don't always look up to ourselves. Wild.
It really is a profound challenge.
Okay, so bringing it back to us, the humans in this equation. If we want to be more honest ourselves, maybe to be better guides, or just for our own well-being, what helps? What do honest people look like, according to the sources?
Well, one source looked at traits valued in places like the FBI where candor is non-negotiable. It boiled it down to 3 components of honesty, especially for leaders, but pretty applicable generally.
3 components. Let's hear them.
First, humility. Not being weak, but having intellectual humility. Being willing to admit mistakes, see them as learning opportunities, actually listen to others, state your view confidently, but be open to being wrong.
Okay, being secure enough to not always need to be right. Makes sense.
Second, conscientiousness. Being reliable, dependable, focused on goals, persistent. People like this tend to value clear rules, high standards. You can count on them.
Solid. Dependable. Got it.
And third, guilt acceptance. This is about feeling healthy guilt about your actions when you mess up, not feeling fundamentally worthless as a person. People who can admit fault, feel appropriately bad, and learn from it, they tend to build better relationships and get things done because they take responsibility.
So not crippling shame, but productive guilt that signals time to adjust course.
Exactly, a useful signal. And in terms of actually cultivating honesty, the sources say it's not just about avoiding punishment. Your internal drive matters.
So how do you boost that internal drive?
A few strategies came up. One is finding and learning from exemplars, people, historical or living, who really embody honesty, trying to emulate their character.
Role models for honesty. Okay.
Another is using regular moral reminders, keeping a journal, reading relevant texts, even simple signs or institutional things like honor codes. There was a study mentioned where just reading and signing an honor code significantly cut down cheating. It just brings the value front and center.
Makes a standard salient.
Yeah.
Harder to ignore.
Yep. And finally, actively working against that temptation to cheat or distort. One way mentioned was fostering other virtues like friendship and love. When you genuinely care about others, the impulse to be dishonest for your own gain tends to decrease. Your focus shifts.
Ah, that ties back beautifully to the relationship benefits. Caring for others makes honesty easier, which builds stronger relationships. A positive cycle.
It seems so.
Okay, let's try and pull this all together. Honesty. It's fundamental, yes, but way more complex than just telling the truth. It's about integrity, not distorting reality as you see it.
Right. And it's vital for trust, for relationships, for society functioning well, and now, critically, for guiding AI ethically.
It generally brings huge benefits, deeper well-being, stronger connections, but it's not always easy. It takes courage, sensitivity, awareness of the context.
And it's learned, not innate, something we have to cultivate in ourselves and teach others.
And that requires ongoing human judgment, both in our own lives and definitely in how we're trying to shape AI. Still lots to learn, apparently, about how it all works.
For sure, research is ongoing.
Which leaves us, and you the listener, with a final thought to chew on. We know from the evidence that dishonesty, even small stuff, is pretty common. And we know it costs us energy, anxiety, trust, integrity. We also know AI is learning from all our data, including all that common dishonesty, and its ethical compass is being set in part by flawed human feedback.
So, given all that, what does this really mean for the future of trust? Trust between people, sure, but also trust in these AI systems weaving themselves into our lives.
Knowing the benefits of honesty and the drag of dishonesty, how can you consciously choose to cultivate that truthful signal clarity in your own interactions, whether you're talking to another person or increasingly interacting with AI? What kind of reality are you helping to build or helping to train for the future?
Definitely something worth reflecting on.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into honesty.